I never thought I'd be the guy to get blindsided like this, but here I am. My name's Mike, and I've been with Lisa for about 8 years now. We met during college, hit it off pretty quickly, and everything seemed fine. At least, that's what I told myself. We got married 3 years ago, and I genuinely thought we had something good. We weren't perfect, sure, but we were solid. Until the last couple of months. That's when I started noticing little things that didn't add up. It all started around our anniversary trip. We planned a week in the Catskills, just us to celebrate. I was excited, meant to be a relaxing getaway. But from the moment we arrived, Lisa was different. She was more irritable, snapping at me over dumb stuff, like the way I packed or what I chose to wear. She was also unusually secretive on her phone, always hiding it when she thought I wasn't looking. I brushed it off, thinking maybe she was just stressed or tired. But I couldn't shake the feeling that something was off. Then came the night we went out to dinner with some friends. Lisa was acting weird from the start, distracted, and constantly texting. I saw her glance at her phone more than once, and she'd quickly hide it like she was hiding something she didn't want me to see. Usually she'd be chatty and flirty with everyone, but that night she was cold and distant, almost like she was just going through the motions. When I asked her if everything was okay, she snapped back, "Yeah, just tired, stop overthinking." But I knew better. I felt it in my gut, something was wrong. The next day I decided to check her phone. I know, probably not the best move, but I was desperate. I figured if I saw any messages, I'd know what was really going on. I wasn't snooping out of mistrust, just curiosity. I waited until she was in the bathroom and I glanced at her phone. That's when I saw it. A string of texts with some guy named Jake, talking about plans to meet up later with suggestive messages and flirty emojis. My stomach dropped. I read more and it was clear. They'd been seeing each other at least for a few weeks, probably longer. I couldn't believe what I was reading. My wife, the woman I loved and trusted, was sneaking around with my best friend. Jake had been a buddy of mine for years. He even knew about Lisa, and I'd always thought he was a decent guy. Turns out he was just as much of a liar as she was. I felt betrayed, angry, and honestly numb. How could she do this? How could she lie so blatantly right under my nose? I felt like I'd been punched in the gut. I kept scrolling and saw more pictures they'd exchanged, mentions of secret meetings, all behind my back. When she came back, I decided I couldn't keep quiet anymore. I confronted her right there in the hotel room. I threw the phone on the bed and told her I knew everything. Her face went pale, then flushed. She started lying instantly, said it was just sex, that she was bored, that Jake was just a dumb mistake. She told me she didn't mean for it to go this far, that she was just feeling neglected, that I wasn't paying enough attention to her anymore. She even had the nerve to say she loved me, but that she needed something else to feel alive. That's when I realized I'd been a fool to think we had a real future. It was like a switch flipped inside me. I was furious, hurt, and betrayed all at once. But there was also a part of me that felt crushed, like my entire world was collapsing. I couldn't believe I missed all the signs, that I'd been so blind. How could she lie to my face so effortlessly? All those years, all those moments I thought were real, were they just a sham? I didn't sleep that night, replaying everything over and over, trying to understand how I'd missed the signs, how she'd managed to keep this secret so well. The shock was overwhelming, and I felt like I was standing on the edge of a cliff. I knew I couldn't stay silent forever, but I also didn't want to make any rash decisions. I needed time to process, to figure out what I really wanted. But the one thing I knew for sure, my trust was shattered. I didn't know if I could ever look at her the same way again. And that's where I am now, standing at a crossroads, trying to piece together what's left of the life I thought I knew. After that night of discovery, everything changed. I couldn't sleep, I couldn't eat, and I found myself obsessively going over every little thing she said, every glance, every text. The betrayal hit me hard, but what hurt even more was realizing how easy she lied to my face, how she played her part so convincingly. I kept thinking about all those years, the vacations, the holidays, the quiet nights at home. Was it all just a facade? Had I been blind the whole time? I decided I needed some space, so I packed a bag and left the hotel early the next morning. I didn't tell her where I was going. I just needed to get away, clear my head. I stayed with my brother for a few days trying to act normal, but inside I was a mess. I couldn't focus on anything. My mind kept circling back to her, to Jake, to the betrayal. I kept asking myself, how the hell did I miss all of it? How did I not see the signs? I'd always trusted Lisa, always believed she was different from the others. Turns out I was just another fool trusting the wrong girl. During those days I kept thinking about the future. Could I forgive her? Could I even look at her the same way again? The thought of staying with her made me sick. I felt angry but also deeply hurt, like I'd been punched in the chest and left there to bleed. My mind was racing with questions. What was her excuse? Did she really think she could lie and I wouldn't find out? Or did she know I would eventually? I wondered if she'd been doing this for months, maybe even longer, and I just hadn't seen it. One thing was clear. I couldn't just pretend it never happened. I knew I had to confront her again, face her lies head on, but I also knew I needed to be prepared for whatever she threw back at me. I decided to go back to the apartment to get some of my things, to see her face to face again. Part of me still hoped she'd somehow apologize, admit everything, and maybe, just maybe, we could fix this. But deep down, I knew better. I knew that a woman who could do something like this, right under my nose, didn't deserve a second chance, not without a serious fight. When I walked into the apartment, it was eerily quiet. Everything looked the same, but I felt like I was walking into a different world. I saw her sitting on the couch, her face a mask of anger and guilt. She looked up at me, her eyes narrowing. "You're back," she said, voice cold. I wanted to scream, to yell at her, but I held back. I had so many questions: why, how long, who else? But mostly I just felt numb. I knew I had to stay calm for now. We sat down and the confrontation began in earnest. I started asking her about Jake, about how long they'd been seeing each other. At first she denied everything, called me paranoid, accused me of snooping, of not trusting her. She lied so convincingly I almost believed her, almost. Then I pulled out the evidence, the messages, the photos. Her face flickered with panic and she finally broke down, trying to justify her actions. "It was just sex," she said. "It didn't mean anything. I was just bored. You weren't giving me what I needed anymore." Her words were like knives, twisting the knife deeper into my chest. I felt the rage boiling up. How could she reduce it all to just a meaningless fling? How could she lie so easily, so shamelessly? I looked at her and realized she was a different person, someone I didn't recognize anymore. In that moment I saw her for what she really was, a selfish, manipulative woman who didn't care about our vows, about what we had built. I wanted to tear her apart, to scream at her, but I also just wanted to leave her, leave the pain and never look back. But I also knew I needed to hear everything to understand the full extent of her lies. That conversation went on for hours. She tried to spin her story, said she wasn't happy, that I'd neglected her, that Jake was just a temporary distraction. But I knew she was lying. I could see it in her eyes, the guilt, the dishonesty. The truth was, I was already done. Not just with her, but with the idea that I could trust her again. All those years of believing in her, loving her, trusting her, crumbling in that one moment. I felt like I was drowning, like I'd lost a part of myself, and honestly, I didn't know if I'd ever recover from this betrayal. Now I'm left here trying to pick up the pieces. I don't have a clear plan yet, but I know I can't stay. I can't keep pretending that everything's okay when I know the truth. I don't know what the future holds, but I do know that trust, once broken this badly, doesn't just heal overnight. It's a slow process, if it ever comes back at all. And right now, I just feel numb, like I'm standing in the ruins of what I thought was my life, wondering if I was ever truly loved or just fooled. After that brutal confrontation, I knew deep down I had to make some serious decisions. The truth had shattered whatever illusion I'd held about our marriage, and I couldn't keep pretending everything was fine. The betrayal wasn't just about her cheating. It was about the complete loss of trust, the realization that the woman I loved and trusted had been lying to me right under my nose, possibly for months. I felt like I'd been punched and left bleeding on the floor, trying to hold myself together while everything I believed in was crumbling around me. I decided I needed a bit of space, time to breathe, think clearly, and figure out what I really wanted. I told Lisa I was leaving for a couple of days. I didn't want to argue or make rash decisions in the heat of the moment. I just needed to step back and process everything. I packed a bag, grabbed my keys, and headed out. I didn't tell her where I was going. I just needed to get away from her, from the house, from the chaos she'd unleashed. I drove for hours, ending up at my parents' place where I could be alone with my thoughts. That drive was one of the longest of my life. My mind kept spinning. How could she do this? How long had she been cheating? Was it just sex or was there more? And most importantly, could I forgive her? I kept telling myself I'd give it some time, but honestly, I knew that trust was already dead. I didn't see how I could ever look at her the same way again. Every little thing she'd said or done suddenly felt like a lie. The woman I'd loved, the woman I'd married was gone, replaced by someone I barely recognized. Over the next couple of days, I spent a lot of time thinking about what to do. I talked to my brother and some friends, getting their advice. They told me I deserved better, that I shouldn't stay with someone who lied and cheated. Still, part of me was torn. I loved her, or at least I thought I did. Maybe I was just holding on to what we had, afraid of starting over. But I knew that staying in a relationship built on lies wasn't an option anymore. I couldn't do it. I refused to live in a world where I was constantly questioning everything. During those days, I also reflected on how I might confront her again. I knew I had to go back to the apartment, face her, and get some of my things. I wasn't sure what I'd say or how I'd act, but I knew I needed closure, even if that meant ending things for good. I also felt like I owed it to myself to be honest. I was angry, hurt, and betrayed, but I also knew I had to be clear-headed. No more hiding, no more pretending. If I was going to do this, I had to do it right. When I finally returned, I was ready for whatever she had to throw at me. I walked into the apartment and there she was, sitting on the couch, her face tight with guilt and frustration. She looked up at me, her eyes narrowing as if she was bracing for a fight. I felt my heart pounding. Part of me wanted to tear her apart, but I knew I had to stay calm. I looked her straight in the eye and told her I knew everything. The truth was out and I wanted her to hear it straight from me. Her reaction was predictable. She started denying everything again, trying to lie her way out. It was just sex, she kept saying. It didn't mean anything. I was just bored and lonely. Jake was just a rebound, I swear. Her voice was shaky, but she was still trying to act like she was innocent. I could see through her lies, though. She was desperate, pleading, trying to manipulate her way out of the situation. But I'd already made up my mind. I wasn't buying it. I pulled out the messages. I'd found the photos, the proof of her betrayal. Her face contorted in panic, and for a moment she looked like she might break down. But then she launched into her typical lies, telling me she never meant for it to go this far, that Jake was just some guy she met randomly, that she was just experimenting, trying to find herself. Her words felt hollow, like empty shells of what she'd said before. I could see right through her, and I knew she was trying to minimize what she had done. That's when I realized something critical. I was done. Done with her lies, with the betrayal, with the woman I thought I knew. I felt a mix of anger, sadness, and pure disappointment. I couldn't believe I'd been so naive, thinking she was the one, trusting her completely, only to find out she'd been fooling around with my best friend. The entire foundation of our relationship felt like it was made of quicksand, sinking fast. And in that moment, I made a decision. I would no longer be the fool who stayed silent. I told her that I was leaving permanently this time, that I couldn't live with someone who lied and cheated, who didn't respect what we had. I packed my things, said I loved her one last time, and then walked out the door. As I closed it behind me, I felt a strange sense of relief mixed with heartbreak. I knew I'd lose a lot by ending things, but I also knew I'd gain my sanity, my dignity, and a chance to start over. I didn't know what the future held, but I was finally free of the woman who betrayed me in the worst way possible. Leaving was one of the hardest decisions I've ever made, but deep down, I knew it was the right one. The house, the life I thought we had, suddenly felt like a prison, full of lies and betrayal. As I stepped out that door, a strange sense of clarity washed over me. I'd been played for a fool for too long, and staying would only mean more pain. I was done pretending everything was okay when it was. Over the next few days, I stayed with a friend who was sympathetic but firm. He told me I needed to focus on myself now. Honestly, I felt numb most of the time, like I was walking through a fog. I kept replaying everything in my mind, her lies, her sneers, the way she looked when she was trying to deny everything. I'd never felt so betrayed, so stupid for trusting someone so wholeheartedly. It's like I'd built my entire life around this woman and she just ripped it apart with a few careless texts. I also contacted Jake, my so-called best friend. I wanted to hear from him directly to understand how he could do this to me. I messaged him, and he actually answered. His excuse: "It was just sex, man. I didn't mean for it to get serious. She's the one who wanted it. Honestly, I feel like shit." That was a slap in the face. I'd always thought Jake was a good guy, someone I could trust, and now I found out he was just as much of a liar. It hurt more than I can say. Here I was, the guy who gave them the benefit of the doubt, and they both betrayed me so easily. Seeing how everything was crumbling, I realized I had to do something. I needed closure. I decided to go back to the apartment, not to fix anything, but to get some of my stuff and clear out the rest of what I had left. I couldn't keep giving her the power to manipulate my feelings. I wanted to leave with dignity, even if it felt like I was doing it alone. When I came back, Lisa was waiting, looking nervous. She tried to act like everything was fine, but her eyes gave her away. She was full of guilt, but her pride wouldn't let her admit she was wrong. She started with the typical bullshit, saying she was sorry, saying she didn't mean for it to happen, that she was just lost, that she loved me but she needed something else to feel alive. I just stared at her, feeling cold inside. How could she say she loved me when she'd been sneaking around with my best friend? It was like she was trying to gaslight me all over again. I told her I knew about Jake, showed her the messages, the pictures. Her face twisted in panic. She kept insisting she was innocent, that she was just confused, that it was a mistake. Yeah, right, like her lying about it was a little misstep. I wasn't buying any of it anymore. I told her that her excuses meant nothing to me. She'd fucked up too badly this time and that I wasn't going to play the fool anymore. I'd seen enough to know she was a manipulator and I didn't want to be part of her lies anymore. I started packing my things. She sat on the couch, crying, trying to plead with me, but I was already done. I didn't want her apologies, I didn't want her excuses. I just wanted out. As I collected my clothes and whatever valuables I could find, she kept begging, telling me I didn't understand her, that she was lost, that she loved me. But I knew better now. Love isn't supposed to hurt like this. Love isn't supposed to be a lie. When I finally walked out, I felt both exhausted and strangely liberated. The house was silent behind me, like it was mourning what we lost. I thought about all the years I'd given her, all the moments I'd cherished, and how they all seemed so meaningless now. I realized that I'd been holding onto a dream that was never real. This betrayal had shattered my trust, and honestly, it felt like my entire world was falling apart. But at the same time, I knew I had to start over, somewhere new, somewhere better. Maybe someday I'd forgive her, but right now, I just needed to escape the mess she made. Now I'm living day by day, trying to rebuild what's left of my self-respect. I don't know if I'll ever fully get over this, but I do know one thing: I won't be the same guy after this. I've learned that sometimes you have to walk away from the ones you love if they turn out to be nothing but lies. And honestly, that's a bitter pill to swallow. But if there's one thing I've taken away from this, it's that no matter how much you love someone, if they betray you like that, you're better off walking away before they completely destroy you. The days that followed were a blur of confusion, anger, and a strange sense of relief. Each morning felt like waking up from a bad nightmare, except I was fully awake and everything was real. I'd never felt so betrayed in my life, and honestly, it shook my confidence to the core. I kept asking myself, how did I miss all the signs? Was I just blind, or did I refuse to see what was right in front of me? It was a brutal wake-up call, and I was left trying to piece together what was real and what was just an illusion I'd built around us. I spent hours just walking around my apartment trying to clear my head. I'd look at all the little things that once made me happy: our photos, her favorite mug, even the stupid little inside jokes, and realize how much of it was just a facade. The truth was, I'd been living in a fantasy, fooling myself into thinking she was loyal, that she loved me. But look where that got me. I felt foolish and angry, but also exhausted. I knew I couldn't keep living in this limbo, pretending everything was okay when I knew she'd betrayed me so badly. One of the hardest parts was facing friends and family. I told a few trusted people what had happened, and their reactions ranged from shock to outright fury. Some of them warned me to cut her loose for good, while others tried to remind me of the good times, urging me to think about forgiveness. But honestly, I couldn't see any way to forgive her. Not now, maybe not ever. How do you forgive someone who lied and cheated on you so blatantly? How do you come back from that? I was starting to realize that some betrayals cut so deep that the wound never really heals. Meanwhile, I also had to deal with the fallout from her lying to everyone else. She tried to spin her story, claiming she was confused, that she didn't mean to hurt me, that it was just a mistake, like it was some kind of fleeting slip-up. I knew better. I knew she was manipulating the truth to protect herself, to keep her reputation intact. But it didn't matter. The damage was done. No matter what she told everyone else, I knew the real story. I saw through her lies, and I couldn't pretend anymore that she was the woman I thought I married. As I started to move forward, I knew I had to take control of my life again. I began by blocking her number, deleting her from social media, and cutting off all contact. I didn't want to hear her excuses, her lies, or her manipulations anymore. I just wanted to heal. I also started going to therapy, trying to understand why I let this happen, why I stayed so long, and how I could rebuild my confidence after being so thoroughly betrayed. It wasn't easy. Some days I felt like giving up. Others I felt a flicker of hope that I could somehow come out of this stronger. One thing I realized during this process was that I'd been putting her needs above my own for too long. I was so focused on making her happy, on maintaining the perfect relationship, that I ignored the signs. I thought love meant sacrificing everything, my happiness, my peace of mind. But now I saw that true love means respecting yourself too. It means knowing your worth and walking away when someone consistently disrespects that. It's not an easy lesson, but it's one I learned the hard way. Now I'm trying to put the past behind me, piece by piece. I'm still hurt, still angry, but I know I won't let this define me. I'm focusing on rebuilding my life, on finding happiness outside of the chaos she brought into it. There's a part of me that's afraid I'll never trust again, but I remind myself that trust is something you rebuild, not just give away freely. I want to believe that someday I'll find someone who's honest, genuine, and worthy of my love, someone who won't cheat or lie to me. Looking back, I realize I've learned a lot from this experience. Mainly that ignoring the signs of trouble only makes things worse. If someone starts acting different, hiding their phone, lying about where they've been, pay attention. Don't brush it off. Because when someone truly loves you, they won't hide things. They won't betray you in the worst way possible, especially not with your supposed best friend. No one should have to accept that kind of pain. And honestly, I hope anyone reading this who's going through similar heartbreak learns to value themselves enough to walk away when trust is broken, before it's too late. It's been a few months now since I left her, and honestly, I feel like I'm still in the process of putting myself back together. Some days are better than others, but I've come to accept that this pain, this betrayal, is something I'll carry with me, at least for a while. The worst part was losing the woman I thought I knew, the person I trusted more than anyone. But in a strange way, this experience has also forced me to confront some uncomfortable truths about myself and what I deserve. I've learned that love isn't just about devotion, it's about mutual respect. You can't build a future with someone who doesn't see your worth or who lies to your face. Trust is fragile, and once it's broken, it's almost impossible to repair. I see that now. I see that I was naive for thinking I could fix someone who clearly didn't value me enough to be honest. The pain of betrayal is a sharp teacher, and I won't forget what it's shown me. Now I focus on myself. I've started working out again, reconnecting with old friends, and even reigniting hobbies I'd put aside. I remind myself that I don't need her to define my happiness. I'm learning to enjoy my own company and to be comfortable with the idea that I might be alone for a while, but that's okay. Sometimes being alone is the best way to heal and rediscover who you really are. Looking back, I realized that I don't regret the years I spent with her. They were real at the time, and I'd be lying if I said I didn't cherish the good moments. But I also understand that people change, and sometimes those changes aren't for the better. What I do regret is ignoring the signs for too long, convincing myself that things would get better, that she'd come around, or that I could fix what was broken. That illusion cost me a lot. Most importantly, I've learned that moving on isn't about forgetting. It's about accepting what happened, learning from it, and refusing to let it destroy your future. I'm not the same man I was before, and that's okay. I'm stronger now, even if I don't feel like it every day. I know I'll find happiness again with someone who truly respects and loves me, not someone who plays games and lies. So, to anyone out there who's going through this kind of heartbreak, trust me, it hurts. It might feel like you'll never recover, like everything you believed in was a lie. But time does help. And you owe it to yourself to walk away from the heartbreak, to rebuild your confidence, and to remember your worth, because if someone can betray you so deeply, they don't deserve the space in your life. You do. And someday you'll find someone who's worth all the pain you've endured. Until then, keep moving forward. It's the only way out.